Good morning, fourth graders. All right, I thought I'd try something and see how it works today. I am going to go through your math lesson today starting on page 389. Now, what we're practicing, you've been doing this all week, is comparing fractions. And today we're going to get into using this word called benchmark. We're going to use benchmark fractions to help us compare. So let's start first with this question. Now, if you follow me along, you can fill out your math book as we go. Kind of save you some work later. Jasmine's swimming lesson lasts for 2/3 of an hour. It takes her 1/6 of an hour to do her homework. Does Jasmine spend more time on her homework or at the swimming lesson? So I know I'm going to compare this 2/3 and this 1/6. Okay, now you can compare it any way you want. So let's see, we have 2/3, 1/6. Okay, you can draw a picture, you can draw a number line, you can use any model you want, or you can use our magic wand. Now I'm going to use the magic wand for this part because I can already see that I know I can have common denominators to compare because 3 can easily become 6. I know that if I do 3 times 2, and it's my magic 1, so I have to do the same on top. Then 3 times 2 will give me 6, which is the same as here, so now I can compare them easily. And times my top, 2 times 2 is 4. So now I have 4/6, and I'm going to put this equal, compared to 1/6. Now that's really easy to see that 4/6 size pieces is a lot bigger than 1/6 size piece. So does Jasmine spend more time on her homework or at her swimming lesson? So Jasmine's swimming lessons last for 2/3 of an hour. So she definitely spends more time at swimming lessons. Okay, let's switch our page here. It's going to be easier if I tear it out. Okay, so this is page 390 if you're following with me. Okay, so we're going to talk about all the different ways that we could have compared 2/3 and 1/6. So it's the same question. So we can model it. That's what I was kind of telling you. If you wanted to use a picture, or they used a number line. So it says the number line shows where the fractions 2/3 and 1/6 are compared to 0 and 1. So that means here's 0, here's 1. Okay, notice that they put 1/2 right there in the middle. And then they split their number line into 6, so into 6 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they already kind of found that common denominator that we did last time. And then they marked 1/6, and then they marked 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, which we already know is the same as 2/3. And we can see that 2/3 is a lot closer to 1 than 1/6. And that's what this says. So the number line shows that 1/6 is closer to 0 than 2/3 is. It also shows that 2/3 is closer to 1 than 1/6. Sorry, my voice is all scratchy today. This means that 1/6 is less than 2/3 and 2/3 is greater than 1/6. Okay, now this is when we're going to start using that word benchmark fraction. Okay, benchmark fraction is just a fancy way of saying fractions that we know really easy, like 0, 1/2, and 1. Those are benchmark fractions that we can picture in our head really quickly, and we can compare fractions to really quickly. So it says another way to compare fractions is by using a benchmark fraction. Use 1/2 as a benchmark, so kind of as like a starting point, to compare 1/6 and 2/3. So here we have 1/2 And we're gonna think, okay, I already know that 1/6 is smaller than 1/2. And 2/3 is actually bigger than 1/2. Okay, 2 out of 3 is bigger than, we can't even do half of 3, right? So 2 out of 3 is closer to a whole number than 1/6. If we were thinking half of 6 pieces, that means we would have 3 pieces. So our 1/2 mark would be 3/6. But we don't have even 3/6 yet, so we can see easily that 1/6 is less than 1/2. So the number line shows that 1/6 is less than 1/2 and 2/3 is greater than 1/2. So 1/6 is less than 2/3 and 2/3 is greater than 1/6, all by just looking at our half mark. So just like we figured out at the beginning, Jasmine spends more time at her swimming lessons than on her homework. Okay. 391 if you're following along with me. Now you can use what we just did to solve a similar problem using 1 whole or 1 as a benchmark. Think about the two fractions, 11/10, remember that's an improper fraction, and 7/8. Which fraction, 11/10 or 7/8, is greater than 1? So I'm going to think about this. To get 1 whole with 10th pieces, I would need 10 out of 10. And that equals 1. To get 1 whole out of 8th size pieces, I would need 8 out of 8. And that equals 1. So now I'm going to look at my original fraction, 11/10 or 7/8. 10 out of 10 was 1, and I actually have 11/10. So I have more than 1 with 11/10. And then 7/8, I need 8/8 to make 1. So 7/8 didn't even quite make it to a whole. So this question says, which fraction, 11/10 or 7/8, is greater than 1? 11/10. Which fraction, 11/10 or 7/8, is less than 1? 7/8. Because remember, 7 didn't even make it to our whole yet. Which fraction, 11/10 or 7/8, is greater? 11/10 is greater because it is greater than 1, and 7/8 is less than 1. Okay, question 4. Write less than, greater than, or equal to show the comparison of 11/10 and 7/8. Remember, our mouth eats our greater number. 5. Explain how you can use benchmarks to compare fractions. So we just use benchmarks. We use our benchmark as 1. So we could see what fraction was greater than 1 and less than 1. Okay, reflect. Look back at your try it strategies. That's when we did the question very, very first in this one. And model it and solve it. Which models or strategies do you like best for using benchmarks to compare fractions? Explain. Now, you can think about how in this one we used 1 as a benchmark fraction, 1 whole. Or you can think back when we used 1/2 as a benchmark fraction to this one. And decide what do you like best? Do you want to use 1 whole or do you want to use 1/2? My opinion is that I usually like to use 1/2 because a lot of our fractions that we use don't get as close to 1 as these ones did up here. So I like to use 1/2 because I can think, I already know half numbers. So half of 6 is 3, half of 12 is 6, half of 8 is 4, half of 2 is 1. So I can think of halves really easy, and I know how close I can get to a half really easy. So I'm going to write that I like using 1/2 as a benchmark because I know half fractions easily. For some of you, you might want to say that you like using whole numbers as your benchmark fraction. So you know 8 out of 8 is 1 whole, 12 out of 12 is 1 whole, and you can decide which number is closer to being your whole. So that is just your opinion. Your reflect is just you thinking your thoughts. Okay, now we did half of your assignment together, so all you need to do, actually, hold on. I take that back. You guys missed me, huh? All right, let's finish this page and then I will let you finish on your own. Okay, apply it. Use what you just learned to solve these problems. Tell which fraction is greater, 4/8 or 3/4. Use benchmark fraction 1/2 to explain your answer. Show your work. I'm just going to think about 1/2 for a minute. And let's think of some equivalent fractions for 1/2. Now I'm going to think of 8ths and 4ths too. So 8ths, I know half of 8 is 4. So 4/8 is equivalent to 1/2. And then I have 4ths, and I know that half of 4 is 2. So 1/2 is equal to 4/8, which is equal to 2/4. These are all the same. Now I'm going to look at 4/8 and 3/4. Okay, oh look, I already see when I found my equivalent fractions. 4/8 is 1/2. And then let's think of 3/4. Look at my 4ths half mark. So 2 out of 4 was half, and I have 3/4. So 3/4 is greater than 1/2. Because 3 is greater than 2. So my question was, tell which fraction is greater. 3/4 is greater. It is greater than 1/2. Okay, number 8. Nathan walks 10/10 of a mile. Sarah walks 11/12 of a mile. Who walks a greater distance? Explain. Use a benchmark number in your explanation. Now I see that both of these are really close to whole numbers. So I'm going to think of 10ths and 12ths. Okay, 10 out of 10 is 1, and 12 out of 12 is 1. Okay, now let's look at our actual fractions. So we have 10/10 is 10/10, which we know is 1. Okay, and then 11/12. Remember 12 out of 12 is 1, so 11/12 is actually less than 1. We didn't quite get to a whole number. So our solution is who walks a greater distance? It is Nathan, because one whole mile, and Sarah only walks 11/12 of a mile. Okay, number 9, use the benchmark fraction 1/2 to compare the two fractions below. Which symbol correctly compares the fractions? So I'm going to think of 6ths and 8ths. Remember 3/6 is 1/2. And 8's right here. 4/8 is 1/2. Okay, let's see. 4/6 is, actually bigger than 1/2, right? Because 4 is bigger than 3. And 3/8, is less than 1/2 because 4 is greater than 3. So already here, I know that 4/6 is greater because 4/6 is greater than 1/2, where 3/8 is less than 1/2. All right, now I will let you do your practice page, and all you need to do is just that front and back. And I think there's only 4 questions. So you guys should do really, really well with that. And don't forget to take the quiz after you finish today. Good luck. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you out.